Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go. Hello, Enchilada Nation. Really excited to be back with you today with a good friend, partner, and incredible entrepreneur, Nicole Briggs. Nicole, thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me. Super fun.
Yeah, it's certainly my pleasure to be spending some time with you. For those of you that don't know Nicole, I've known Nicole now for a couple of years, and just an incredible businesswoman. She runs one of the top real estate teams in Southern Utah, but it goes beyond the transaction for her. She's an incredible leader to the people on her team, and also runs a group of realtors across the country called Real Estate Talk for Women, which we're going to talk a little bit about that transition. So Nicole, thanks again for being here. And why don't you give us a little background of your transition into being a business owner?
Sure. So I actually started my career as being self-employed as a nail technician in a salon. So I worked for 13 years doing nails. After kind of doing that day in and day out, I realized that I couldn't really make any more than I actually was per day, just because there was no way to multiply myself other than keep increasing my prices. So I decided to get my real estate license, literally got it in 3 weeks, signed up, and hey, now I'm a realtor. So I've been a real estate agent now for 15 years. What I did that I think is something that most people have a hard time doing is I literally threw all my nail stuff away and just didn't give myself any other options. This was my goal. So I kind of have a strong desire to want to succeed. So I just knew I wasn't going to quit. So I started off 15 years in the business. I guess I'll be almost 16. I'm like 15 and a half. I feel like I'm slightly a veteran, although I'm still learning. I still have deals come up and I don't know sometimes what happens, but it's been great. And I started my team about 6 years ago. I've got 3 buyer agents and I have a transaction coordinator, and always looking to hire more. Obviously, I have an all-women team of real estate agents, which is really fun. And we definitely do a lot of coaching and training and all that fun stuff. And then on the side, I discovered a couple of years ago that I really wanted to do something a little bit different. I kind of had an epiphany in my life. Maybe you can call it like midlife crisis, maybe. I don't know if I'm midlife or not. But I decided to do something a little different and start coaching women in real estate and just holding some master classes. And after about 3 or 4 months of that, I thought, let's start a Facebook group and see what happens. And so now I've got this Facebook group that I run, and it's got about 23,000 women in it, which is super fun and exciting, and lots of chatter going on in there and lots of best practices. So it keeps me busy and I really enjoy it. It's super fun.
That's awesome. I mean, there's so many cool things about that story. Is number one, I love the transition into real estate, that you literally burned the boats and throwing away all your nail stuff of just like, no, because I can't tell you how many people, and you've probably seen this too, how many people transition into entrepreneurship, or they, like, for example, they become a real estate agent and they always leave that door open. Yes. And the minute it gets hard, which being an entrepreneur is hard, right? It's just, you have to swallow that, as there's going to be hard times. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen people hit that first road bump and they quickly look back and notice that door's cracked open and they're immediately retreating to it. So I love the fact that you were just if I'm going in, I'm going in.
Yeah, the thing is with nails is like my hands were just worn out. My hands were worn out and they were falling asleep, and I can't curl my hair anymore without my hands falling asleep, just, I don't know, it's got to be carpal tunnel, but I'm not going to the doctor to figure it out. It just was kind of one of those things. And I knew it's what I wanted to do. I just didn't, I had the blind mentality where, I like houses and I think building is great. And boy, was I in for a rude awakening when I joined the real estate business, because I had no clue really. I didn't know any realtors at the time, and that was in 2006. And so I didn't know anyone, and just had a really nice guy who ran a model home one day. And he's like, you're really personable and I enjoy speaking with you. You really should look into getting your license. And so had he not taken 10 seconds to invest in me and tell me a little bit about what it's like to be a real estate agent, I probably wouldn't have ever made the jump. But I've always been self-employed since I was 17. So I feel like if I had to ask permission to take a break or go use the restroom, I'd probably get fired. Let's just be honest. I'm pretty, what's the word? Like, well, yes, I'll pretty, and I would have a hard time being like, really? Like, I go to the bathroom, like,
Yeah.
not waiting. So I think it would be kind of one of those things where I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing in some facet or the other. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. You look at these people that are living in somebody else's world and so that much structure. I'm just like, that would drive me nuts. And their argument back to me is like, well, I don't have to think about work at nights and I don't have to think about work on the weekends. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, it's such a trade-off of like having complete control of designing the life you want to have.
Well, and that might be not true. You really are actually. You're thinking to yourself, I don't want to go back to work on Monday. So you really are. You're just, and you're punching the clock for someone else. So you do. It's just a different trade-off, just different. But
yeah,
I love it.
That you've
really
had
fun.
that. I love that you've had that hustle since you were 17. Is same thing. I think a lot of us have these little side hustles coming up and just like merge into these entrepreneurs. The other thing that kind of came up when you were talking a minute ago that I thought was really interesting, you talk almost nonchalantly about the size of your community on Facebook with over 20,000, almost 25,000 people in it. But one thing that you didn't mention there is I know how guarded you are of that group, where some people can go build a huge community quickly, but it's a bunch of either paid for followers or just random people getting in. I love that you've been really protective of the person coming into that group. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it started off with like, so in January of 2019, I guess it was 2019. Yeah. I decided to do a group. So it took me really till like July to get enough guts to put something out there and be like, okay, I'm out there. So it took a lot of me just posting. I mean, here I am. I did run a couple of Facebook ads. The thing that's interesting about Facebook is, zeroing in your demographic and zeroing in who it is that you're speaking to is super important for me to my words be my words, because I feel like I coach women on purpose, not men on purpose, because I don't know what it's like to be a man. I don't understand what it's like. But I do know what it's like to be a mom of 4 kids and trying to, juggle mom life and business life and trying to be, the best of both worlds. The last thing I want to do is be a crappy mom, So I felt like I could really resonate with them. Not only that, some of my experiences along the way, like, how some of the feelings that I had at the brokerage. Like just for instance, there was no hall pass really given for the fact that I was a mom of 4 kids. Like I still had to be to script practice and role play at first thing in the morning. And I understand that, and that's fine. But my personality type is you tell me what to do and I'll do it like 100% exactly what you tell me what to do. And then when the group doesn't do it collectively, and then that mentor comes back to the office and starts talking about how only a handful of people are there, you must not be serious. Like I actually still take that personal. So it still wore on me over time. And then it was almost that, the comments that kind of get made. And unfortunately, it's true. Like we're going to get scrutinized a little bit. People only want to list with you because you're good, you're attractive, and you got the listing over me because of that. And that's fine. Like I can take that, but I understand what that felt like. And so maybe just giving some insight as to how I battled that and combated that, with just knowing that every appointment I went to, if I was competing against somebody, for my office or someone that I knew, I had to be smarter, faster. I wanted to make sure that I had my ducks in a row and that I showed up as, the expert that I knew that I could be, and not just this dingy, like, because I'm an expressive personality, so I can't help it. Like I'll get really big and I can just chat and, chew your ear off. But when I'm dealing with an analytical personality type, it took me a long time to understand that they couldn't stand me, which is weird to me because my personality is like, oh, everybody likes me. Like, come on. So I think what was really great about all my negative things that I feel like were negative, they're not really negative. They all really were just lessons for me to learn a bit about myself. Like I needed to know who I was, recognize the fact that I'm not going to be for everybody, which is totally fine. But it's my job as a business professional, like whether or not we're talking real estate or entrepreneurship in general, if I'm selling something to somebody or I'm trying to get them to understand my point of view and they're not getting it, it's not their problem. That's a me problem, right? Because I'm not delivering the information in a way that they can understand it based on their personality, because I'm the one asking for something, you know? So I feel like that was a real pivotal moment in my career and in my life, like my personal life specifically. I can, about the same time, I had had a conversation with my sister, and bless her if she watches this, but she, we had had a conversation, and we had gotten into an argument about something, and she finally confronted me, and she's like, you know, Nicole, you hurt my feelings. And my parents had always taught us just to be honest, like, just be honest. If you lie and you don't tell the truth, like, you're gonna get in big trouble, right? So I felt like I was just being honest. And what I didn't realize was I was being brutally honest, and I was really like hurting my sister's feelings, who absolutely adores me as her sister. And the last thing I was wanting to do was hurt her feelings, but it let me know that I needed to temper some of my honesty and remember who my audience is, right? That, like, I love her, I care about her. So the way that I give the message is equally as important as what I say. So just those few things.
I love what you're saying right there. In fact, that if a lot of times when people ask me to share a couple of the most pivotal times in my career, one of them is that exact same lesson, is that the minute I learned that everybody's not wired like I am, and that's okay, it changed my world. Because I remember walking out of like a listing appointment or something like that, thinking like, I crushed that. There's no way they're not working with me. And then I call them the next day, they're like, yeah, we're going with someone else. And it's like, what happened? And it was because I was delivering a message and trying to solve a problem the way I would want it done, not the way they would. And I love that you said that changed you both on a business level and a personal level, because it was the same thing for me. All of a sudden, if you learn, you can still be honest. It's the delivery of the honesty is what changes. I think that's beautiful.
And I think you also get good at, like, once you kind of recognize that and you kind of get who you really are, because I feel like also too, there's no way you could possibly sell to somebody anything without knowing who you are yourself, because you don't know how, like, you don't know how that's ever going to be received. And if the relationship is that important to you, then you'll take the time to invest in yourself. And I feel like that was one of my favorite things about real estate, is that I realized that I'm smarter than I thought I was. I care more than I say I do. I'll come off to you like I really don't care, and I'm super busy and I don't have time for you. Sometimes when I got my head down and I'm going to work, but the honest me is really, I really care deeply, and it makes me feel like I'm not paying attention, or I'm not giving it my all. And I would feel horrible if I knew that, you know, if I didn't fix those things that I was told I needed to recognize, you know. So I think you have those defining moments in your life. What was really great was just real estate in general just helped me learn to be more strong as far as like mindset, gave me a lot more confidence. Once I realized that, like, I can speak and people want to hear what I actually have to say, there's something powerful behind that. And although towards the latter part of my career, which is why I formed my coaching program, I don't mean to say that real estate gets boring, but when you have a really great repeat referral business that operates without you, that's when you know, or with you, but you don't have to prospect anymore. You know that you've done the work, right? Like, you've got a successful real estate business, and as long as you continue doing what you did to attain the client, then you'll never have to go without, right? So that's when I decided that, you know what, things are going really well there. And I feel like through life, I feel like anyways, especially in real estate, who can I learn from? What can I get from this person? What can I get from this person? You know, you're just like gathering all this information because you just don't know, which is fine. But like at some point in my career, I decided that, like, I need to do something to give back just a little bit. Like, I feel like I've been a taker my whole career. And that doesn't really like sit very well with me. Like, I felt like that was, it was hard for me because I didn't lean into the brokerage at all. I kind of just come from a mentality of, I'm just going to put my head down and go to work and just leave me alone. Like, as long as I don't need you, I'm just over here working. So don't worry about me. And that's really not a win-win. You know, when you look around and you ask yourself, like, what do I have to show for my business? Yes, I've done a great job for building up myself, and I've done a great job in teaching my children, but what have I done to give back to my industry? And what's going to happen moving forward? Like, the real estate agents coming up, they have no idea. They never went through the recession. So I have things that I can help them with to help them understand what we went through the pandemic is 100% different than what I went through during during the recession, and I have the knowledge to share that. So I felt like it was important to really start branching out, and I didn't know who would want to listen. Like, who wants to listen to me? I'm not a huge producer by any stretch of the imagination. I do what I am willing to give time and invest in, and any more than that's going to take from my family. And it's okay. It's not about the money. It's about what I can do. So
I love this path you're talking about, because you going back to the idea of you burning the bridges, you threw away all your nail equipment, but then it became about, I got to do what I got to do to make this happen. And then as soon as you start getting some success behind that, it's that put your head down, get to work. Yeah. And then it's, you kind of pull your head up and be like, okay, there's more to this. There's things I don't know. Yeah. And you start saying, okay, I did what I needed to do to not die, or basically survive in this game.
I made it through it. My kids are grown.
Yeah. Now it's shifting to like, okay, who can I become? Like, how can I maximize this journey for me? And that's when you start leaning onto relationships and things like that. And then you get to a point where, just like what you're talking about, is now you're saying like, okay, well, now people are coming to me for some advice and some direction. How do I give back on a bigger level? And the way I explain it to people, a lot of times, I feel like my 20s in my career is I was like a sponge, where I would just wanted to soak up everything I possibly could for anyone. And just like a normal sponge, at some point the sponge gets so overwhelmingly full, and the only way to make room for new water, moisture to come into the sponge is you got to wring it out. Right. And so then into my 30s, I started getting this passion in me of like, I want to give back and create platforms like this with the Whole Enchilada, where I can say, hey, let me share some of this back. And by sharing and giving, it's helping other people, but at the same time, it's creating new space for me to soak in new information and grow myself.
Oh, 100%. Like, I just think that I just think it gives us such an opportunity to become better people, just better people. Like, the name of my platform is Show Up Nicki B, and there's a lot of story behind all of it, but it's all because of like life experiences. Just, I was kind of telling you about how, like, learning about yourself. Well, within about, I guess it was probably, I don't know, 5 years or so, my dad actually passed away when I was 29, and so it just like shook me to the core. Like, all of a sudden your mom is someone different than she was, an hour ago. And the mom that you knew is now the mom that you are going to console, instead of the mom taking care of you. So it's kind of an interesting role shift that happens. And then another kind of tragic thing happened with my youngest daughter. She had a best friend who took her life, bless her heart, just absolutely adorable at 16. And I just adored that little girl. And she was the one that called me Nicki B, which is really, so my platform is Show Up with Nicki B. And the reason why is, one is just kind of a wink to her, just so that she knows that I learned something from her at this young age of 16. Like, she was a big personality, beautiful, beautiful girl, and just super, you think from the outside that, we all are kind of like that. You think from the outside, oh, they have this perfect life, but like inside, like, people are just crying, they're just really, really sad. And so you just never know who you're going to be, just saying hi to somebody or smiling at them. I mean, I make it a point, and I tell my people in my group and on my master classes that, like, at the grocery store, I love older men. I like grandma and grandpas, but I just think they're so sweet. And gosh, I just make it a point to smile at least every single one of them when I see them at the grocery store. It's good practice for me to be kind and look them in the eyes and tell them good morning, because I feel like that's kind of a lost thing that, especially after COVID, we have a mask on and we can't smile. We can't, show them our expression. And so I feel like it's such a privilege to just be able to smile to people and tell them good morning. And if they're staring at me for longer than 10 seconds, I better say good morning or something to them. Otherwise it's weird and awkward. So I might as well just not make it weird, and let's just say hi, So I feel like I learned a lot of these lessons, and the whole show up part kind of comes from all these like life lessons. Like, how are you showing up in your business? Do you show up every single day knowing that you're going to hit the goal? Like, I have a goal to do a deal a week. That's my goal. Whether I write a contract, whether I put a listing under, or I get a buyer agency rep agreeing, one deal a week. That's all. And if I get it on Monday, freaking fantastic. Like, I'll be like, okay, I'll deal with my leads for the week, but guess what? Like, I'm going to go shop, or I'm going to hang out, or I'm going to go do whatever I want to go hang out with my kids. So I think the show up part is like showing up in your business, showing up in your personal life, how do you show up for yourself? You know, I feel like that's something that women really, really struggle with, because I think inherently we're givers. I think that inherently we're nurturers. It's just how we're built, which is why I say I feel like I resonate so much with just the women in real estate, because I understand, like I get it. I have the same 4 kids at home that were waiting for me to get home to every single night. And I still had to somehow juggle their life and get them to baseball and to cheer and show property. And, you know, and during that time I was closing 50 transactions, like 50 sides. So young kids and just trying to balance work and mom life, it's a struggle. So, you know, my platform means a lot more to me than just, you know, show up Nicki B and oh, what, like there's meaning behind everything, right down to my signature that I sign my emails with. And it means a lot to me because I'm super, what's it called? I'm like sentimental. I'm super sentimental. And I love traditions. I love all that stuff. Like I'm a big tradition person. And so I think that it's just trying to be a better me, like all the time, and trying to make other women feel like they can be, that they're understood and they're heard, and they can do it. Like you can do this business and you can make 6 figures. You really can.
I love all that. And I love the slogan, show up. And I think it's really important for people to understand it's not show up perfectly. It's not show up 100% prepared. It's not show up better than anybody else. It's not show up with something behind it, right? Yeah. 90% of the battle is just being present and showing up. Right. And that will close the gap on a lot of the other areas where we may be coming up a little bit short, but just show up and be present. Would you agree with that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, it really goes back to like my childhood, really. Like I always say people don't show up for me. I don't know why it is. And I'm telling you, I just get this life lesson all the time. And I guess I still haven't learned the lesson, because that's kind of what I tell my kids too. Like if you keep having stuff happen, it's because you haven't learned the lesson. Well, that's me. I obviously haven't learned the lesson, and I'm understanding it maybe a little bit better, because it's hard to make yourself, my girlfriend and I were just talking about this yesterday. It's hard to make yourself vulnerable to telling people when you need help. And I am the first one to tell you that I don't need any help and I got it. I mean, I'll move mountains to make sure that I still got it. Like but I can tell you, I do not have my shit together sometimes. I really don't. Like I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this day. I don't even know. But somehow, guess what? I make it through the day. The lesson is I don't need to do it alone. And that's a hard thing for me to it's hard for me to admit. It's really, really hard to do. So I'm trying to get better at it, really. But that was the thing, was as a kid, like I'd have a party and no one would come. Like, I mean, we can say that because we're little kids, but think about it for your little kids, you know, if they had a party and no one came, like over time, it just wears on you. And you get to the point where you get a little, you know, stern and rough around the edges. And it's kind of like there's this wall that I'll just stick up, and you don't mean to. And I can feel myself when I do it. I can see it and I know it. It's something that I know personally that I have to continue to work on. And you've probably even seen a turnaround for me just in the last couple of years. It's been really hard for me to lean into the brokerage. It's not how I was brought up in real estate. If we want to talk about how you were raised in the real estate, yeah. It was the brokerage doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter where you work. It's about your effort. And that's really the mentality that I adopted. And so to get that out of my head, that the people there actually want the best for me, first of all, which I know that, but are actually there for me, is very, very hard for me to trust. Super hard for me to trust.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting the nail on the head though with the brokerage. No matter how good a brokerage is, or your partners are, or your mentors are, is they can't close the gap on effort for you. So effort is the fuel. The good partners around you, whether it's a coach, a brokerage partner, a business partner, whatever that is can they make that effort seem easier for you to produce as good or better results, right?
For sure.
So I do think
100%.
Those relationships are important.
They are, and you just never know when you're actually going to need them. And so, you know, it's almost actually unfair to call on those people when you haven't fostered the relationship along the way. And I can see that, you know, I'm working on it. I love being a work in progress, because I promise I screw up all the time, which is totally fine.
I'll share a secret with you. I screw up all the time too. It's part of the game of entrepreneurship. You got to be okay with a little bit of mess, a little bit of like eating crow, a little bit of like, well, that didn't work as I planned.
That's moving on. Yeah, next. Yeah. Like really, that's the motto that I live by. Next. Like I can't give a lot of I don't give a lot of weight to a lot of negative stuff. People know me that if you're a negative person, we'll spend zero time together, zero time.
Oh,
Bless
I hear
you.
you. I don't have room
Bless
for
you,
that in
but
my
no.
life.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
one of the things you and I were chatting a little bit about before we started recording was this idea of balance. And I love the way you described how you approach balance. Will you kind of walk us through that?
Yeah, so I kind of chuckle because I think when people say to me, you know, because I had people say, you need to be a little bit more balanced, especially with outsiders that don't understand the real estate business or understand entrepreneurship and what it takes, the day in, day out, like grind, and how taxing it can be on not just, you know, your energy, but like on your mental strength. Like it's tough. And so, you know, you really need to start balancing things. You need to start being home more. You need to do this. Okay, that's really great. But I think balance is kind of a farce. Like I feel like you can be perfectly imbalanced. And I think that's more of a way to describe it, because when I'm 100% in with my kids, my phone's off. So I'm completely out of balance with my business. Like the phone's in the purse, you know?
Yep.
And vice versa. When I'm on a meeting, you know, I discuss with my kids before the day would start, because I needed them to know I felt like their time was important too. Like, hey, I'm going to be there to pick you up at chair at 5. Like, what else do you have? You know, my kids would tell me but just so that they knew. But I think it actually came down to I needed to be more like centered, and know that like I could handle the day. Because when I would look at my day, I'd have, you know, 3 buyer agent appointments where I'd be showing houses to 3 different buyers. And then, you know, I take my kids every day to school, which I didn't do my first 5 years of my career. And I swear I would never do that again. I wouldn't let my kids pay the price for my career, my shortcomings, you know? So by the time you drop off your kids at school, which was at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then by the time I needed to pick them up at 2:10, that left me like 4.5, 5 hours to really get my business done. So just trying to like center myself around the fact that like I had to time block what was going to happen during the day, and then be very, very direct and you know, honest with my clients about the time that we had together, and making sure that it was structured appropriately so that I could, you know, be there and show up for my kids. Like honestly, it's how it worked. So I think I go for centered more, lots of mindset stuff. I'm big on mindset. I'm big on exposing your mind to bigger thinkers, and like experiencing things that you typically wouldn't do. And it doesn't always have to be a monetary value either. You know, your mind can be just blown just walking through a hotel lobby. What should blow your mind is looking around, knowing that everybody in that hotel, they can all afford to be there, and why aren't you? You know, if it's that important to you, you'll find a way to get there. So it's not just about money. It's, you know, your relationship with your spouses. I've been married 27 years. We've screwed up a lot, which is really fantastic. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm the person that he wants to come home to at the end of the day, and I can't wait to hear how his day went too. So just making sure that like everything kind of just stays centered around what my core values are is hands down probably how I operate everything in my life. So
I loved that definition when you equated being centered to balance. It just really resonated with me, and I think our listeners will really resonate with it, as they know like the whole premise of the Whole Enchilada is people talk about living a balanced life means the way most people describe it, it's mediocrity across all things. Yeah. And I love the idea, if you get centered on what's most important to you, what this life's about for you, the life you want to live, and stay centered on that, and then show up. I think those two messages coming together, stay centered and then show up to your true, authentic, core value self, that's really the recipe for creating a great life.
Oh, for sure. And you'll just feel better. You'll feel better. And at the end of the day, like you can't give what you don't have. Can't give what you don't have, you know? So yeah. I'm always saying like my cup, like I would just rant to my kids, my cup is empty. You don't get in there. Like I really am at the end of my wits, you know, but like no joke. Like if I tell them my freaking cup is empty, like I'm done. They know that's it, because I can't give anymore. You can't give what you don't have. And there's only a handful of things that really fill your cup. like you have to ask yourself, what are the important things that fill your cup, and make sure that those things happen, and those things are you're there for, and you're attending, and you're paying attention to, because those are usually the things that if you don't pay attention to, you're going to wish you had. You know, they're the people that will walk right out of your life, or the experiences that you won't have. And so I don't know, it gets like pretty deep, which I'm not like really a big deep thinker person, but I'm definitely an emotional thinker person. And so I know if it doesn't feel good, or I don't like, if I don't like the relationship, it's not going in a direction that I feel is going to be healthy for me, because I protect myself first, then it's a no-go for me. I just have to make an adjustment and decide if that's a relationship that I want to continue with. So that's my fault if I keep staying in something that's not positive. It's on me, it's not them, you know?
Yeah, I love that. You got to take self-ownership and accountability for that.
100%. It's
Let
fun.
me ask you this question, because, you know, we'll get a lot of people that listen to this, and I think will be inspired by your message. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and the truth is, all of us entrepreneurs have those moments where we feel overwhelmed. We feel like, oh man, why am I doing this? Or I don't know what to do next. So if one of our listeners out there is kind of feeling that piece of overwhelm, like what, without just saying show up, like what is the next logical step in your mind to just say, hey, do this one or two things to help you show up at a higher level, and then behind that you'll show up at a little higher level? Any advice on that?
So I'd have to say, like, for the things that you want to, you know, for the things that are important to you, or if, you know, you don't know how important you are to someone else. Maybe I should just say it that way. You don't realize how just one little thing can be the biggest thing for someone else. Like most recently, this is kind of shame on me and shame on my kids. My husband just recently had a surgery, okay? And so I was nervous about the surgery he was having, and so was my husband. So and my kids are all adults. My kids are 19, you know, all the way up to 26. And so it's like, but it was scary. So I tried to shelter that from them. Didn't tell them how scary it really was, but they could tell I was nervous. And because of COVID, only one person could come all day long anyways, so whatever. So because only one could come, I didn't let any of them come until the surgery actually happened. And that was probably bad on my part, just because you know, they probably should have been there. They should have been around. But it's those things where, like, I didn't give them the opportunity to do it. So I can't really hold them accountable, because I again, put the ball up and tried to shelter someone, which at that moment, I probably could have used them there. Not probably, most definitely, because I needed the support, you know? So it's interesting how, like, just being there, and just when you think, oh, it doesn't matter if I don't show up to that baby shower, it's totally fine. I promise you, someone is counting on you to be there. I promise you they are. And we can't make everything. Like, you can't make everything. You can't be there for everybody. You can't be there for all things. I understand. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, you're super crazy busy and you're across all these states. Like, I don't know how you do what you do either. It's just, it's those moments. So you know which ones they are, that you're just like, I'm not going to reply. Like, my worst pet peeve is when people don't reply to my text message. It can be something just as small as that. Like, that to me says you saw what I have to say and you just dismissed it. And especially if it's someone from my team knows, like, that was like my first thing. It was like, whatever you do, answer my text. I don't care if you give me a thumbs up, a middle finger. I don't care what you say, just say something. Because I at least got to know that, like, you saw it, like, you know, like, don't leave me on red. Okay. All the younger folks, they get that, but it just don't do that. It's rude, you know, and it shows that you're not interested. You're not in it, you know? So I think that there's, you know, those things that if you have an opportunity to be there for somebody, you should be there, because you just never know, you know, when it's important. And I've had personal lessons where I'm so glad I did come. And then there's some where I didn't show up and I felt like absolutely horrible. And I just try really hard to do a better effort of being just a good person, being a good human being, whether it's to my friends or to my coworkers, to my kids. I don't know. I'm telling you, I'm not as, like, fantastic as it, like, it's just a core value thing, you know, like, honest, you know, be honest and have integrity. That's, like, my biggest thing. And for me, like, my name means something. My last name means something. So for my kids, bless their hearts, you know, they go out in a small town and I tell them, your name means something. Everybody knows who we are. So I'm just letting you know, like, you trash our name, you trash your parents, you know, and if you hold us in a high regard, I think that that's the stuff that we have to pay attention to, is how we're carrying ourselves. And as long as we're being authentic and honest, I think that that's the best thing that we can do, is just try. And because if you're not trying, you're not participating in life. And I feel like that's kind of sad.
Love that.
But yeah.
So I think you gave some incredible examples there, because a lot of times I think when a newer entrepreneur sees someone like you that's crushing it and saying like, they're telling me to show up, I think a lot of times they think that means show up, guns a-blazing, make 1,000 phone calls, whatever that is. And I love the examples you gave, even giving an extra smile to someone at the grocery store, or this, like, that is showing up, right? I've got a little note on my computer that I look at every day, and it says, who needs my A game? And it's the idea of just every single person I come in contact with today, no matter how big of a smile that they're giving me, they have some underlying problem or issue they're trying to solve in their life. And my goal is, every interaction I have with someone is, did I leave them better than I found them today? Even if it is that smile, or how are you, or how are your kids? Like, to me, that's showing up. And then I think that augments and shows up in your business in a big way, but it's showing up authentically over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, and I also think too, is when you're a real estate agent, like, when you're first getting started, it's hard. It's not easy. Like, it's really taxing on your brain. So for me, I dive deep into books. So, I mean, like, that's like my best recommendation. I hadn't read a book, no joke. I had not read a book since high school, until I became a real estate agent. I mean, like, other than obviously the real estate book that I had to study from, but I had not read a book at all. And so it's really interesting now. I make sure I buy like an actual book, because I take so many notes and I dog ear and I do whatever to my books. But what's interesting is to go back now to 2006, 2007, 2008 books that I read back then. And there's one that comes to mind. It's the Power of Story. Mm-hmm. And it actually has a lot of places that you can write in there, and it has exercises for you to do in it. And when I went back and I read it, I literally was floored at how I spoke about myself. I was floored, like how hard I am on myself. And I was just young. I was just a 31-year-old agent with a bunch of 20-somethings, and I'm a mom of 4 kids, and I just was overwhelmed with the fact that I could speak that way to myself. So I learned real quickly that my self-talk is my biggest, it can be my biggest fan, and it can be my biggest, gonna bring me down for sure. I have a book that I absolutely love, that I always tell my gals that I coach in my master classes. It's called Heart Talk by Cleo Wade. And if you can see my cool book, my dog has chewed the corners. I mean, like, legit, like, it's missing a corner here. I've dog-eared almost every freaking page.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is it's itty bitty, and I can put it in my purse. And it literally is it's actually a book of poems. You'll find it in the poetry section at Barnes and Nobles. But I can open up any page to the book and find something that is just like a quick read, like, you're more okay than you think. Like, sometimes I just need to hear that. It's totally fine. But I just need like 2 seconds of, like, I want to choke somebody, and I best read something that's positive. I don't know what I have some crazy thoughts some days, but I love the message that every single page has something in it for me. Like, and I know, and I was telling you this before, I had a gal message me in my group, say that an ebook that I wrote, she says it was almost as if you wrote it just for me. It was like you were speaking to me, like, exactly. And she wrote it in quotes and in caps, and what a sweet email that she would send to me, because that's the point. Was I just need you to know that I'm just like you. Like, I am just like you. I sit in those same conventions, which is hard for me to go to. I sit in those same real estate conventions amongst 20,000 people, and I feel about that big, promise. And when I hear those big numbers on the stage, I feel so small. And the feeling of feeling small doesn't feel great, and I know that that's not their intention, but that's how it makes me feel. So I just have to, like, own it and just know. And I share that with people, that, like, I get you, like, I totally understand. I've been there, and I just want them to know that they can relate to me, that I understand trials and their tribulations. I totally get it. And you're going to make it through it. You really will. You just stay the course and stay positive and keep trying. Just keep trying. It will be worth it. It really is. It's great. We have a great business here. It's great.
Well, I've really loved our conversation today. I mean, a lot of ahas. I'm taking notes here while we're talking. And for me, the thing that if I had to summarize this conversation, that is, and I wrote it in big letters here that I'm on my notepad here, is that the secret sauce really is get centered, right? Really identify your core values, what's important to you, and then show up authentic to that. And I think that it is easy to feel small when you're starting getting into the comparison game, but when you're just comparing your current self to what you view as your ideal future self, right, that is the comparison that needs to be made, and then showing up on the path to becoming that person.
For sure. Reflecting back of who you were and then recognizing how far you've come. Like, yes, nobody celebrates that. And it's a big deal. Like, you know, I said 2020 was the do better. That was my motto for 2020. Do better do better and be better. Just like be better. Like just try. Like, it doesn't hurt, you know, it doesn't cost you anything to try.
Love it. So I know a lot of people are going to resonate with this message today. Where do they find you if they want to get more Nicki B time?
Yeah, so my Instagram is probably the easiest to follow along and figure out kind of what I'm doing and what's going on. So that's just show up _ Nicki B. And then you can always go to my website. The link's on there as well in the tap link. So it's Nicole-Briggs.com. So www.nicole-briggs.com. And then for those of you that are in the real estate business and you want to join a women's group of ladies that are giving lots of really amazing stuff, like I'm so proud of them of how much they share. Like, dang, nobody shares how they got successful in real estate. So that's Real Estate Talk for Women. So I'll be happy to let you in, or shoot me a DM and let me know that you saw it and you're in the waiting room for the let in, because it's a little bit lengthy, but I really plow through it and try to get you in there. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll keep making a huge impact in the world. Sure appreciate you on multiple levels. And then Enchilada Nation, thank you for plugging in today. And don't forget to go live life on your terms.